Construction champions, it's your host, Ron Newsbaum, and we're here for another amazing episode of Construction Champions Podcast, where we're completely tearing down the house and rebuilding it on what it means to be a champion. And not just a champion, but a champion in construction. I'm super excited for today's guest. Jay, it is fantastic to have you here.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Man, I'm excited for our conversation. We've gotten to know each other a little bit here. But why don't you go ahead and tell all the construction champions out there a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm a contractor first and foremost. The last 22 years, I've been a roofing contractor and a now turned technology company where we help contractors scale their business. That's sort of my passion, what I do. But first and foremost, contractor, dad, entrepreneur. So that's me in a nutshell.
I can see why we connected. I mean, I'm a husband, I'm a father, spent enough time in the construction industry to have that tighter. And now I've found a passion for serving the industry. And I know you have as well. It's amazing when that all can align and you can take those life experiences and then help others continue to grow. So I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to ask you the $1 million question. And that is, what makes a construction champion?
So I think it's, on the light side, it's somebody that is using their profits to buy their freedom, period. So again, controlling their business, is in full control of their contracting business and has freedom. I mean, we all got into this to have our businesses serve us. Very few contractors get into that position and spend most of their career serving their business. And really that's the shame in kind of the curse of the contractor is, the lack of time and freedom and everything you really got into it for ends up being taken away, and you end up trapped. And I've been down those dark channels and spent decades in it and suffered and trial and error and all those ups and downs to get to where I am. And looking back, the one thing that I can be grateful for now, other than the trauma, the pure trauma of being a contractor, is finding freedom. Getting the opportunity to help people not make the mistakes that cost me so much time, cost me so much of my life, and really time with my family, and the things that we're really here for, right? So, I mean, I think that kind of sums it up as what I think it is as a champion.
I love the freedom and profits. And I mean, you're talking from experience. You spent enough time up on roofs to understand is we can lose sight of that. Like, we get out there and we're just naturally builders. So we just always are wanting to fix stuff.
Absolutely. And one thing that I can share is that I think a lot of us are ruled by anxiety. I see it in myself, and the problem with to be a really good contractor, you have to be able to look ahead. You have to be able to plan ahead. You have to be able to see ahead. And when you're thinking ahead like that all the time, and you're always, go, because that's what's demanded of us. And that's really the industry that we're in. There's not a lot of time to stop and think about, every little detail. It's, you gotta naturally have that, forward look. The problem with that, and where I think a lot of guys get trapped, is that anxiety ensures that nothing new or creative happens. So you hear lots of times guys know they should be working on their business. They know the things they've got the information. Here's more information than there's ever been in, ever, period. And they still can't get themselves to take the actions. And it's not all their fault. It's, a lot, again, and I went through this, is, I'm a contractor. I know how to use my hands, but I don't know how to build a computer system. I don't know how to lead staff, lead an office staff. I don't know how to, do a lot of those things that, if I had, maybe taken another path, I would have. But, at that point, and when I'm first starting out, I didn't know any of those things. So we all have to kind of take that blind leap. And, again, that's where the problems start, right? And as you're learning, it's a very expensive lesson as you go through it all. And again, there's lots of places you can fall into traps, and it sucks your time. It's a vampire, right? I don't think there's any other industry out there that comes with as much risk and liability and everything else that you have to do for, and the risk to a reward is just, it's not there, right? So, but when you do get a hold of it and you do start to run your business like a business person, things change, right? The sun comes out and the blue skies are there again, but it's a long journey through that experience, right?
Yeah, but I mean, with guys like you, it doesn't have to be a long
Mm,
experience. And you started touching on some stuff there. So we've talked about profit. Like you said, there's so much knowledge out there. And to
mhm,
me, it's always finding the knowledge that you connect best with. And you
absolutely.
started going down this road of talking about anxiety and stuff when it comes to running a construction business. I'd like to dive into that because it
Sure.
sounds like that's something you have firsthand experience with and you probably help guys with. And I don't think we talk about enough in the
Yeah.
it can be looked at as like a weakness
It,
here.
it's a culture thing too, right? I mean, I got brought up in the shut up and work era. I don't know if how many other guys did, but like there was either you were tough or you weren't there, right? I mean, you didn't come that back the next day, right? And the problem again with that, is that it keeps us bound and lonely in our businesses, right? Because I was afraid, and I'll tell you, right, the first decade was terrible experience for me because my I was afraid to ask for help. I was afraid to open up. I was living with this pure anxiety of, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Like, I don't, it's, being haunted by the things I don't know and like the threats that aren't there, the nights up worrying about bills and everything else. I mean, I don't wish it upon anybody. But really, when I look back on it, what changed isn't something external that changed or stopped that. It was all internal. It was all getting my mind set properly and waking up and having a plan and waking up and starting to put the pieces together. And again, I wish, and this is why I'm passionate about what I do. I wish there had been somebody there that would have been able to help because I could have skipped so much time. And again, when you're putting this stuff together by yourself, you don't know if you're right. Like you don't have confidence in those things. And a lot of times, things get started, they don't get finished. You're just struggling. So really, again, now we have, support in the industry. I think it's coming a long way where you can have a mentor, you can have a coach, and you can be, as a contractor, you have to ask for help, right? It's not a weakness. It's not a weakness at all. And talking about how you feel and I see it day in and day out. I mean, I work with guys that have been, grinding for 20 years and they're burnt out, right? But they can't tell their wives or their family, and and a lot of times they're scared, right? They're in bad situations, and a lot of pride going into it all. And I know that feeling, right? When you've got the world on your shoulders and you're not really confident about those next steps, but you're taking them anyways, right? So I think we don't talk about that, and that's an important issue, right? Like mindset, like how do you, under all that pressure, how do you just out of nowhere start creating systems to get yourself out of the position you're in, right? How do you find the right people? Like all those things, like again, when you're under that kind of grind, or you're working, 80 hours a week, right? Nothing is going to change. You're just going to only be able to do the things you know how to do. And I think that's the trap, right? Is you go back to what you got praised for in the first place. You were good with your hands, right? Or maybe you're good running crews, like, but you don't grow beyond that, right? And then we spend just year after year in that position, and it's brutal. And then when we do, again, I've got the privilege, and really I'm doing it for those reasons. It's selfish reasons too, partially therapy, but when we open up those doors and those channels and get them thinking a different way, it's like their whole life changes, right? So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we spend so much time pouring into everything around us
Hmm.
and we never have anybody pouring into us. So who is that outlet? Like we're the nucleus for the business, for the family, for
Right.
everything around us. But who is that person or who is that? What's that group where we can pour into, where we
Right.
can, try to take some of this off our shoulders? And you said you used the terminology there that I think a lot of guys use is you said we just fall back into this position. But
Hmm.
when you're the business owner, like it shouldn't be about a position. But I completely
It,
understand what you're talking about,
right.
where you just fall into the position where you've been the most comfortable your entire career.
Right. Well, I mean, again, you go back to where you had success first, right? So again, and I see it, and I know it from my own steps, right? Is that, I was terrified of failing, first of all, which is in a some degree that held me back a lot because you don't take as many risks, right? And on top of that, I felt that my pride and my ego got in the way very early on in my career. So again, it amounted to just more and more and more like a pressure cooker, right? And you're not really solving the problems that you need to solve to scale. Like I want to grow, and lots of guys out there do. I hear it all the time. I want to grow, I want to scale. And the first thing I kind of ask them is why, right? Like why? Well, I want to, and when you get into it, when you really kind of, unravel the onion, it's fear of failing that's driving that, right? Is that they figure if they get bigger, then they won't fail, or if they grow, then they won't have these problems that they have now. And the truth is that's not the way it works, right? And I wish there was more people that would be honest about it and say, hey, listen, you know what? Your problems don't go away. Like the bigger you get, the more money you make, like the problems don't go away. How you handle them, that changes. And that's the shift, right? It's the mindset. It's like I said, it's not something external ever holding you back. There isn't somebody in your way. There isn't, no excuse you can throw at me will be any more than an excuse. It's all up here, right? It's how you see your opportunity and how you play the game, right? So I mean, again, there's tons of knowledge out there, like we can all admit to that too much, but it's information without context, useless, right? And again, getting the wrong information at the wrong, or maybe even the right information at the wrong time sets us back, right? And I mean, again, I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to guys that have gone out and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on their marketing. They can't sell anything. Like, where do you put the cart before the horse? And there's no one there to help them say, hey, you know what, smarten up, right? Like a lot of what I do is kind of looking at guys' watches and telling them what time it is, right? Like, like do you see this perspective? So yeah, there's not enough people. And I don't think there's enough support for contractors, unlike other industries and other places where they're far more open to discuss these things. And I think contractors, again, they're generally defensive at first, right? But once they get and start to get the support and start to see the results, that changes very quickly, right? And it did with me as well. I learned very quickly that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not have all the answers, And again, I love to say it. It's not my job to be right. I don't have to be right. It's my job to get it right, but I don't have to be right every time, right? I don't have all the answers. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. There's other people that have done what I want to do ahead of me, and I'm going to learn from them, right?
I think we do hear scale all too
Mm,
often. I want to scale, I want to scale, I want to scale. But like the problems just multiply. And unless your mindset changes, like what you talked about, you're always going to have the problems. But if your mindset is what really needs to scale, because in that
absolutely.
perspective, that's when the problems become easier to handle because you have a better overview of
Hmm.
exactly what's going on. And we're too focused on scaling the top line numbers, scaling that, hiring people, trying to build this big machine that if we don't scale our mindset first, we're going to run into 100x the problems.
Guaranteed. And anybody that thinks they're going to save time or like have their freedom that way is out of their mind. Now, scale, right, is a term I like to use very lightly. Very few companies should scale. All right. Because they're not even profitable to begin with. They don't have, when you can step outside of your business and let it run completely without you, all right, then come talk to me about scale. Okay. But until you can, right, until you can operate a $500,000 operation without having to be the middle of everything and being the rake and everything coming back to you, don't even think about scale, right? And you can make a very good living. I promise you this. Like, this is the part. Like, we associate sometimes volume, with success, and it's just simply not true. And I'll give you a very good example of this. 15 years ago, I was running a $12 million roofing company. In fact, everything on the outside looked great. Shops, new trucks, all that stuff. Um, Internally, it was a disaster. absolute mess. We weren't profitable. I was losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay. And something needed to break for me to stop doing that. And it did. I ended up, having a pretty massive insurance claim, burned down a huge church that exceeded my insurance. It was again, everything you can do wrong, I've done it. And, coming out of that, the lessons that I learned is, hey, first of all, let's slow down, right? Let's get the things right first. Let's get the fundamentals in place. I have to be profitable on every single job, and that's my responsibility, right? If I can't get clear numbers and know my numbers and run my business with my numbers, my emotions will always get involved. I will always be making decisions from the gut. So that was the first major aha moment, and I'm going to call it when I moved from being a tradesman, all right, to a manager. Right. And that was the first kind of mindset shift is, hey, it's not, again, I have to manage these systems. I have to make sure that these things get done. Right. And profitability has to be the first and foremost, because why do it? Right. At the end of the day, you can love your business all you want. It'll never love you back. Right. It'll never do it. As much as you want it to, and as you can bleed your whole life into it, it will just take and take and take. And that's what it's there for. Right. I mean, you have to get out of your business what you deserve, and nobody's going to come along and just hand it to you, right? So profitability was my focus after, basically burning down the business in a day. And I stuck with that, and I focused on the KPIs. I focused on the numbers, the things I could trust and that were solid, because again, salesmen can lie to you, staff can lie to you, customers can lie to you, like everything can be interpreted, but numbers don't lie. They'll tell you the truth. So I started following that for a long time, and kind of got me out of that shift. And what I found was that, hey, I'm running a $2 million business now, but I've got like 300,000, 400,000 in the bank. Like I'm comfortable, right? And I think that's where a lot of contractors should aim to be, right? Because they don't want to take, this is the scale part, is I'm a manager now. I'm predictably bringing in profits. I'm involved in the business, the day-to-day stuff, but like, I don't, I'm starting to move out of that. Like, that's where you start to think about scale. Like, it's when you have predictable, like boring business with very little variables that you can control. All right. You have, a good market hold, understand marketing, sales, all of those things. All right. That's when you start to think about scale, when you have control of those features in your business. But guys try to scale before they know the first thing about those. And then they expect that, oh, I'll just get somebody, or I'll hire this agency, or you know what I mean? It's always not, it's putting the cart before the horse, right? They haven't taken the time to understand their numbers of why would I want to even do, why would I want to do this extra work? Why would I want to do more for less, right? And again, will the market even want this offer that I have? And a lot of times the answer is no. Again, until you find the market niche where you can grow your business, which I was, again, it took me a number of years, almost 15 years of struggling to really kind of find that spot, understand my marketing, understand my sales, get full control on those. And then it was, a discussion around scale. But here's the funniest thing. I didn't need to do it. I did less, and then the business started to scale. The more I removed myself, the better the business got. And now I'm completely out of the business. It operates 100% without me. I spend about 2 hours a week, again, doing, high level tasks. And that's it. I mean, again, the last 4 years or 5 years, I guess, have been the easiest of them all. Right. And ironically, it's when I did the least, I should say. So again, it does happen, but not until up here gets straight, right? And when you become the CEO of a business, that's the evolution, right? That's what we all want to get to, is actually seeing the business more of an investment, that has to produce a return every month. And you're not, like, I'll use it again, but I don't have to be right anymore. I don't have to be right about anything. And I never tell anybody that I'm going to be, right? I'm simply saying, hey, listen, we're going to get it right, right? I'm going to you're going to learn and you're going to grow, and like, I'm going to give you those responsibilities. I mean, people in my business and the people I've led to run the business. And it's worked out pretty well for us, right? But again, here was lots of traps and problems along the way. It was definitely not a straight line. And I don't think it has to be that way anymore. With all the information we have now compared to when I started, like, I mean, there was nothing, literally nothing. I mean, I had to learn, job costing, for example, from, going to the NRCA meetings, and it was fragmented. It wasn't complete. But now we have access to that stuff anywhere we want, right? So, I mean, it's there if you want it, but it's, again, you got to put the context to it.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking. It's like when you build a house, you have to build
Right.
the foundation first. But
Hmm.
that scale is all too often we hear like, I'm going to go build this house, and then we'll fill in the back end. Like it's like
Right.
building a house and then saying you build the foundation later. Like it doesn't work that way if you want it to not break.
Right. And what works for you in the manager's role will only take you so far. I mean, you're gonna hit the wall at $1 million, $2 million because you need other people and you got to turn into the leader now, right? You can't be the manager. You can't be the boss, right? And again, that's where if you're not prepared internally for those things and those challenges, and you haven't thought about them and you charge into those situations, and we see it all the time. Again, guys, they start these businesses, and again, they start off with the right intent, right? They start off for the right reasons. And they put their everything into it, the more energy, and like, I mean, they sacrifice their family, their health, everything, right? And I feel for these guys. I feel for them, the contractors that have been doing it 30 years still, right? And they're still doing it because had they just, modified some things, they would have gotten through those barriers that are holding them back, right? But consistently I see, the two things that are very prevalent is they take on more than what they know how to manage, all right? Or they put themselves in a position where they're afraid to take risks anymore, right? That because they've lost or they've hit some resistance, that they fall back into this pattern where they just manage what they can. But they're not happy there, right? You know that, hey, listen, you may as well got a job working for someone else and had your weekends free with your family, not had to worry about these things. Because I mean, even if you're on vacation, your mind, when you own a business, you're still on the hook for everything. You're still carrying that burden around with you day in and day out. And when things aren't going well, it's very hard to disconnect. It's very hard to just be like, I'm just going to, you know, go and hang out with my kids. Like I've been there, right? Like it's tough, right? Like you're there, but you're not present, right? You're walking around with all this, this burden, and it doesn't. Again, that's the stuff you have to prepare for, right? That's the kind of stuff that you need support, you need perspective, you need people to pull you up, and you need a strong network of people that have, again, done it before you, and know how to handle that, right? Because it becomes a lot easier that way, right?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I know there's so many guys out there listening right now that relate with exactly what you're saying. It's you've dropped awesome knowledge today. Amazing, amazing information. Uh when you talk about just the foundation, like this is the stuff that matters in business, no matter where
Hmm.
you're at, whether you're getting to scale or not. Like there's break points that are going to happen, even going from 15 to 20 million or 20 to 40. Like there's stuff that's going to happen in every step. You have to have that foundation right. And what you're talking about is so impactful to businesses, man. It's
Hmm.
awesome, and I'm super happy that you took the time to be on the show today. And for all the construction champions out there, if they wanted to reach out to you, follow you, or contact you and talk to you, where's the best places for them to do that?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. It's the Contractor AI group. Of course, you can reach me by email. We've got websites. Anywhere, any social platform you'd like, just type in the Contractor AI group and you'll find us.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for taking the time and being on Construction Champions.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Construction Champions, another fire episode. Are you building the foundation to your business, or are you already working on the roof and the windows haven't even been installed? These are questions that we have to ask. We have to look in the mirror and have these kind of conversations, because I know scale can be a trendy word right now. And a lot of people think we just need to reach scale and everything will work itself out. Well, from what Jay said, he had reached scale. I've been there where you think you're scaling, but you're actually burning cash and you're losing money, and you got to figure out how to become profitable. And let me tell you this, it's easier to do it with less revenue than it is when you're doing bigger revenue, because the problems are bigger and they're more compounded. Think about the problems that you have at 500,000 and you just compound them for 10 years and get to 15 million a year. What do those problems look like? So take some time this week and evaluate, are you working on the foundation where you should be? Are you growing the business? And do you even understand why you would want to get to scale? What benefits does that give you? What does that look like for you? Your personal life, your business life, everything around you. Take time and understand that. So, Construction Champions, make sure you go to the Construction Champions podcast, my free mastermind group on Facebook. Go like us, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you are currently watching this. Drop a comment with a guest that you would like to see. And until next time, go be the champion you were meant to be. Hey, Construction Champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum here, and I want to talk to you about how you can automate all of your marketing. We've had so many people on here talk about getting the systems in place. Well, we have partnered with Build 12 and Construction Champions podcast. Les O'Hara, the founder, what really excites me is his 30 years in the industry. And now he's built a system to be able to nurture your leads and continue to utilize that. I personally use the system myself. Build 12 is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of value in there, and it's a way to start getting away from Angie's List and all of that kind of stuff and start actually creating your own leads every day and have a system for them. So go on our website, check out the show notes, go check out Build 12 and what it can do for the front end of your business today. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend going and meeting with Les and his son, Devin, and talking to him about what they built for their own business so the rest of the industry can take benefit from that. Here on Construction Champions, we're all about helping each other out. And what is better than contractors helping contractors? I say nothing. So let's go take this to the next level. Go check out Build 12. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Les or his son, Devin. We're here to help. We want to continue to grow the industry.